It was late October in Portland, Oregon, the kind of month when the rain never truly stops, only changes in intensity. The city smelled of wet leaves and coffee, and the constant gray sky pressed down like an unspoken secret. I'd been living with Emma for almost 6 years. We met in a bookstore on Hawthorne Boulevard, bonded over a shared love for Raymond Carver, and somehow found ourselves building a life together. Our apartment was small but warm, hardwood floors, second-hand furniture, and windows that framed the rust-colored maples outside. I thought we were happy. The first suspicion was nothing more than a flicker. One night, I came home earlier than usual from my shift at the dockside warehouse. She was on the couch, laptop open, but quickly slammed it shut as I stepped in. She smiled, a little too quickly. "You're home early," she said. Something about her voice felt rehearsed. I brushed it off. We'd both been stressed. Her with the marketing job downtown, me with long shifts, and I told myself I was just tired. But small things started piling up. Her phone, once left charging in the kitchen, now followed her everywhere. Late night, work calls, that ended with her voice soft and low, as if afraid the walls might overhear. She started wearing perfume on days she claimed she was just working from home. One night, I tried to joke about it. "Who's the lucky guy getting you to dress up for conference calls?" She laughed, but it didn't reach her eyes. "You're paranoid." The next week, the evidence found me. It was raining, a relentless Portland drizzle. I'd gone to grab my jacket from her car because mine was soaked. On the passenger seat sat a paper coffee cup from Stumptown, with a little heart drawn in black marker. On the lid, "See you soon, Red Heart, M." M. She didn't have a coworker whose name started with M. When I confronted her, she denied it at first. Her hand shook as she rinsed dishes in the sink. "It's just a friend," she said. "A friend who writes you hearts? Who? It's not what you think. Then tell me what it is." She went silent. The only sound was the rain against the window. I realized she wasn't going to give me the truth unless I tore it out of her. That night, after she fell asleep, I checked her laptop. I knew the password, her old cat's name. My hands were sweating as I opened her messages. There it was. Mason. Photos of them together at Powell's bookstore, at a riverside cafe, even in our apartment when I was at work. Long threads of words. "I can't wait to see you again. You make me feel alive." The next morning, I made coffee, just like always. She came into the kitchen in her robe, hair messy, acting like nothing had happened. "I know," I said simply. Her face drained of color. "I read everything." She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I told her I'd be gone by the weekend. The calmness in my voice scared me more than any rage could. 2 days later, I left our apartment for the last time. The rain followed me out the door, running in rivulets down the street. Portland looked the same, but it didn't feel like home anymore. As I drove away, I realized the worst part wasn't losing her. It was knowing she had already been gone for a long time. I'd just been too blind to see it. Part 2, After the Rain. Portland's skyline disappeared in my rearview mirror, swallowed by the low clouds. I drove south without a real plan, following I-5 until the signs for Eugene started appearing. My sister lived there, and I figured her couch was as good a place as any to start over. But leaving the apartment didn't mean I left Emma behind. She was everywhere. The scent of her shampoo lingered on my jacket. The playlist we used to cook dinner to came on shuffle, and I had to pull over just to breathe. Even the rain, God, the constant rain, felt like it was mocking me. I didn't tell my sister everything at first. Just that Emma and I had problems. But she's sharper than she looks. On my second night there, She handed me a beer, sat across from me, and waited. "You're not sleeping," she said. I stared at the bottle in my hand. "She cheated." Her eyes softened. "I'm sorry." I shrugged, trying to play it off. But the truth was, I was hollow inside. The thing about betrayal is that it doesn't hit all at once. It seeps in slowly, like water under a locked door. You think you've processed it, but then some stupid, everyday thing cracks you open again. 3 weeks later, I saw Emma's name light up my phone. "Emma, can we talk?" I didn't answer. An hour later, "Please." I made a mistake. For a moment, I imagined driving back, hearing her out. Maybe there was a way to fix it, to rewind to the bookstore on Hawthorne Boulevard when everything still felt possible. But that thought passed quickly. I knew her mistake wasn't a single night, it was weeks, maybe months, of choices she made without me. Still, curiosity is a dangerous thing. I texted back, "Meet me at the old pier. Tomorrow. 8 p.m. The pier was empty when I got there, just the sound of the Willamette slapping against the posts, and the orange glow of the street lamps on wet pavement. She arrived 10 minutes late, her coat pulled tight, her hair damp from the mist. "I'm sorry," she began, her voice trembling. "Sorry you got caught," I said. "No." She shook her head, tears in her eyes. "Sorry for ruining us. I thought I wanted something new, but it was nothing. He was nothing." I studied her face, searching for the girl I'd fallen for among the shadows and rain. Maybe she was still there. But the trust we'd built, brick by brick over years, was gone, swept away in the flood she'd started. "I don't hate you," I said quietly, "but I can't be who I was with you anymore." I turned and walked away, her sobs fading into the sound of the river. That night, for the first time in weeks, the rain didn't bother me. Part 3. The echo of what was. After that night on the pier, I thought things would get easier. They didn't. Portland has this way of holding on to memories. The coffee shop where you used to sit together, the street corner where she kissed you in the rain. Every route I drove seemed to lead past some piece of our life, and every one of those pieces still had her fingerprints on it. I moved into a small studio in Southeast, close to a laundromat and a tight place that stayed open past midnight. The apartment smelled faintly of old paint, and the radiator hissed like it was keeping secrets. It wasn't much, but it was mine. For a while, I avoided social media altogether. I didn't want to see her face, didn't want to know what she was doing. But temptation is a slow, steady pull. One night, alone with a bottle of whiskey, I gave in. Her page was still public. The first photo was her in the same coat she wore the night we met at the pier, smiling at the camera like nothing had ever happened. In the background, barely visible, was Mason, his arm draped casually over the back of her chair. It stung more than I wanted to admit. Not because I wanted her back, but because she'd looked me in the eye and called him nothing. I told myself to forget it. But a few days later, while grabbing coffee at a place near my work, I saw them. They were sitting in the far corner, heads close together. Mason's hand rested on hers. She spotted me before I could look away. For a second, our eyes locked, hers wide, his oblivious. I left without saying a word, but the image stayed burned into my mind. That night, I couldn't sleep. I thought about how she'd come to me at the pier, crying, begging for forgiveness, all while still seeing him. I thought about every lie she told, how easily she'd slipped into them. And somewhere in that darkness, a thought took root, one I didn't try to push away. If she could play games, so could I. I didn't move fast. That's the thing about revenge. If you rush it, it looks desperate. If you take your time, it looks like fate. The first step was simple. I needed to know more about Mason. A little digging online told me enough. He worked in real estate, specializing in luxury waterfront properties, and liked to post photos of himself in tailored suits holding craft cocktails. It didn't take much scrolling to find his office address. I started running into them. At first, it was accidental, or at least, that's how it looked. A casual, "Oh, didn't expect to see you here," when they were at the farmer's market. A quick nod from across the bar at the Jupiter Hotel. Each time, I left before it could get awkward. I wanted to plant the idea in their heads that maybe Portland was too small to hide in. Then came the second step. I knew Emma still had a soft spot for the bookstore where we met. Every few weeks, she'd post a photo of a latte on the same worn wooden table in the cafes section. I started going there again, not to talk to her, just to exist in her peripheral vision. Sometimes I'd be flipping through a book, sometimes typing at my laptop. I could feel her eyes on me, wondering what I was doing, who I was with. The third step was the most important: information. One rainy Tuesday evening, I stopped by the bar near Mason's office. I sat at the counter, keeping to myself, until I heard him before I saw him. Loud laugh, confident voice. He was with two coworkers, and after a couple drinks, he started bragging. About a deal he closed, about a trip with Emma to the coast, and, most interestingly, about a few side adventures she doesn't need to know about. I didn't react. I just listened. And that's when the idea shifted. It wasn't about hurting Emma anymore. It was about letting the truth do it for me. I left that bar with Mason's phone number, not because I asked for it, but because he drunkenly handed me his business card after mistaking me for someone who might buy a condo. Now I had a direct line, and I already knew exactly who would be getting a message from it. Part 5. Returning the mirror. I didn't rush. I let the card sit in my wallet for a week, its glossy black print like a secret only I knew. Every time I paid for coffee or pulled out my ID, I'd see Mason's name and think about how easily people hand over pieces of themselves to strangers. On a Thursday evening, I stopped by the little copy and print shop 2 blocks from my apartment. It was nearly empty, just me, the hum of the printers, and the faint smell of toner. I slid Mason's card into the scanner and made 3 perfect duplicates. The next night, I sat at my kitchen table with a whiskey in hand and a plan forming in the quiet. I drafted a text message, short and deliberate, from a new prepaid phone I'd bought and cashed that morning. The words were simple. "You don't know me, but you should know him." Attached were 3 photos I'd found on Mason's public Instagram. One with him leaning close to a woman who wasn't Emma, her lipstick smudged on his cheek. Another of him and the same woman at a wine tasting. And the last, him holding her hand under a table, captured in the reflection of a restaurant mirror. I sent the message to Emma's number from that burner phone and powered it off immediately. No follow-up. No explanation. Just a seed planted. By Sunday morning, my phone, my real phone, was buzzing. It was a text from Emma. "Emma, was it you?" "Me? Was what me?" "Emma, don't play games." I didn't reply. 2 days later, I saw Mason alone at the same bar where I'd overheard him before. He looked different. Less smug, his shirt a little wrinkled, his laugh forced. He didn't notice me in the corner, but I saw the way he kept glancing at his phone like it was a ticking bomb. That night, just before bed, I got another message from Emma. "Emma, I hate you." I hate him more. I set my phone face down on the table and smiled for the first time in months. But here's the thing, revenge doesn't end cleanly. Once you start, it's hard to stop. And I wasn't finished. Part 6. The Table for 3. It happened on a Thursday night, the kind where Portland feels like it's holding its breath before another stretch of rain. I was halfway through a beer at McMenamin's on Broadway when Emma walked in. She wasn't alone. Mason trailed behind her, his jaw tight, his eyes scanning the room like he was already expecting trouble. They didn't see me at first. They took a booth in the corner, facing each other. Emma's coat was still on, her hands clasped in front of her like she was bracing for a storm. 10 minutes passed before she spotted me. Her gaze froze, then flicked away, then back again. Mason followed her line of sight, and when he saw me, his expression shifted, not recognition exactly, more like the unease of realizing a stranger knows more about you than you'd like. I raised my glass in a casual, almost polite salute. Then I got up and walked over. "Mind if I join you?" I asked. Neither answered, but I slid into the booth anyway. Mason's shoulders tensed. Emma's eyes darted between us. "You two look like you're having an important conversation," I said. "Care to let me in on it?" Mason opened his mouth, but Emma cut him off. "You sent those messages." I smiled slightly. "Messages?" "You'll have to be more specific." Her voice shook. "The photos. The woman. You wanted to ruin us." I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the table. "No, Emma. I didn't want to ruin you. I wanted you to see what it feels like when the truth walks in uninvited." Mason's jaw clenched. "You've got no idea what you're talking about." "Oh, I think I do," I said. "I heard you at the bar. I saw you with her. You're not half as careful as you think." Silence. The hum of conversation from other tables seemed to fade. Emma's face went pale, and Mason's eyes hardened into something between anger and fear. I stood, dropping a 20 on the table. "Drinks are on me. Call it a farewell gift." As I walked away, I heard Emma's voice crack, the start of something between a sob and a curse. Mason didn't follow me. Outside, the air was cold and damp, but for the first time since all of this began, I felt light, like I'd set something down I'd been carrying too long. But as I reached the corner, a thought hit me. Emma had once told me, "Secrets are never just yours. They belong to everyone they touch." And I wasn't done touching this one yet. Part 7, The Last Thread. The night after our little meeting at McMenamin's, I didn't sleep. I just sat in my apartment with the rain against the window, thinking about Emma's face at that booth, the way it crumpled, the way Mason's confidence drained. Most people think revenge ends when your target suffers. That's the first mistake. It only truly ends when you decide it does. I pulled out the small black notebook I'd been keeping. Inside were dates, places, and little details I'd picked up over the past 2 months. Mason's work schedule. Emma's weekend habits. Names of people in their circle who didn't know the full story. The next morning, I made 3 envelopes. Inside each one was a neat little packet, printed screenshots of Mason's messages to other women, plus the same photos I'd sent Emma. On the front of each envelope, I wrote a name from his client list. Not random names, big ones, the kind that would make his office sweat if they ever thought their property guy couldn't keep his personal life under control. By Friday afternoon, those envelopes were in the mail. I didn't need to see the fallout, but I did hear it, from the barista at the cafe near Mason's office, who mentioned a blow-up in the real estate place down the block. From a mutual acquaintance who texted, "Dude, what the hell happened between Emma and that guy? She's posting breakup quotes all over Facebook." 3 days later, Emma showed up at my door. She didn't knock gently. It was sharp, quick, and patient. When I opened it, she was standing there in the rain, hair plastered to her face. "You did this," she said. Not a question. "You're welcome," I replied. Her voice cracked. "Do you hate me that much?" I leaned against the doorframe. "No, Emma. I don't hate you at all." But you handed me the knife the day you lied to my face. I just decided where to cut. For a second, I thought she might slap me. But she didn't. She just stood there, shivering, before finally turning and walking away. I watched her disappear down the block, swallowed by the gray. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel the weight of her in my chest anymore. It was over. At least for me. Epilogue after the storm. 3 months later, Portland was still the same rain-soaked streets, the same smell of coffee drifting from doorways, the same damp chill that worked its way under your clothes. But for me, the city felt different. Lighter. I'd moved to a new place, a loft with big windows that looked out over the river. Most mornings, I'd drink coffee by the glass, watching the water slip past like it had somewhere important to be. I'd stopped checking Emma's social media. Stopped wondering where she was or who she was with. Sometimes, though, she'd still cross my mind, not the Emma from the end, but the one from the beginning. The girl in the bookstore who smiled like she was letting me in on a secret. The one I thought I'd grow old with. I realized I didn't hate her. I just hated the way she taught me what I was capable of. One cold January morning, I walked into that same bookstore on Hawthorne Boulevard. It smelled exactly the same, paper, wood, and the faint bitterness of espresso. I bought a book without really looking at the title, just for the sake of walking out with something new. On my way out, I caught my reflection in the rain-speckled window. I looked older than I remembered. Sharper. Maybe harder. The past didn't feel like a wound anymore. More like a scar I could run my hand over, a reminder, not a burden. Out on the street, people hurried by under their umbrellas. The rain was light, almost gentle. For the first time in a long while, I didn't mind it. I pulled my coat tighter, turned toward the river, and kept walking. Some storms don't end with sunshine. They end when you decide to stop standing in the rain. It was a gray Sunday in February when the letter arrived. No return address, just my name written in neat, looping handwriting I recognized instantly. I almost tossed it straight into the trash. Almost. Instead, I sat at the kitchen table, coffee steaming beside me, and slit the envelope open with the corner of a butter knife. Inside was a single sheet of paper. I know you think it's over. Maybe for you it is. But you didn't see everything. You didn't know everything. Mason wasn't the only secret I had. One day, you might understand why I did what I did. And when you do, I hope you remember how much you once loved me. No explanations. No names. Just enough to make the air feel heavy again. I read it twice, then set it down. My first instinct was to burn it, to erase it before it could dig under my skin. But I didn't. Instead, I folded it neatly, slid it into the back of the black notebook where I'd kept all my notes during the months of planning. Not because I wanted to revisit it, but because part of me knew I would. Outside, the rain picked up, tapping against the windows in that familiar Portland rhythm. I stood there a while, listening, wondering if the storm had really passed, or if it was just circling back. And for the first time since she left, I wasn't sure if I wanted it to. I kept that letter for 2 weeks, tucked in the back of the notebook, pretending it didn't matter. But the words wouldn't leave me alone. Mason wasn't the only secret I had. On the 15th day, I broke. I started small, checking old emails, scrolling through old photos. And then I found it. A receipt from a hotel in Astoria, dated almost a year before the affair with Mason. Not a business trip. Not anywhere near her office. I made one call to the hotel. They still had the record. 2 guests, 1 room. The other name wasn't Mason's. When I saw it, something in me finally went still. It wasn't shock. It wasn't rage. It was clarity. Emma's betrayal hadn't been a single storm. It had been weathering, constant and quiet, wearing me down over years. Mason was just the final downpour that broke the dam. That night, I walked down to the riverfront. The city lights shimmered on the black water, and the rain, soft, steady, felt almost warm against my skin. I took the letter from my coat pocket, read it one last time, and tore it into pieces. The scraps floated from my hand, disappearing into the current. Emma's secrets could drift wherever the river carried them. They weren't mine to hold anymore. I turned and walked home, not looking back. Some endings aren't about answers. They're about finally putting the weight down. And as the rain fell over Portland, I knew, for the first time, I was free.